introduce our today's presenter. Over to you, Markan.
Thank you, Pratisad. Good evening, India. Good afternoon to England and Europe. Good morning to America. Hello, bonjour, and namaskar, sabiko. Henrik Mouritsen is a Danish philatelist. He's a member of the FIP Postal History Bureau and a judge in 4 different countries: Canada, USA, Denmark, and Germany. He has won large gold medals in 3 different classes: traditional philately, postal history, and postal stationery at FIP exhibitions, and that is really exceptional indeed. At the FAPA exhibition, IBRA, we call it IBRA 2009 in Germany, Henrik's postal history exhibit beat Joseph Hackney's Cape of Good Hope Triangles traditional exhibit to win the Grand Prix International. Last year, he issued a 2,500 pages handbook on the postal history of Denmark and the UPU 1875 to 1907. Welcome, Henrik, og du kan starte din presentation. And Henrik, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Can I just get a confirmation that you can see the first slide?
Perfect.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you very much, Markan, for inviting me to give this presentation in connection with philatelists in India. And I'm particularly happy to be able to do this to an Indian audience because I'm actually a very big fan of your country. I have been there quite a few times. And I am extremely impressed with your national parks. You know, I'm a biologist, so I have seen tigers, gaurs, leopards, elephants, everything in the parks. And I absolutely love India, and so do Eva. But unfortunately, during Corona, it's not so easy to go there. So I'm happy to join India in this particular way. So especially welcome to all our Indian participants. And of course, welcome to everybody else who may have joined from anywhere else in the world. Today, I'm going to present you some strategic thoughts about what it takes to win a large gold medal at FIP exhibitions. And I'm a natural scientist, so I'm trying to analyze things, right? I try to understand what the mechanisms are that leads to a certain result. And what I'm going to present you is basically my observations. You are very welcome to have a different opinion, of course. We are going to have a discussion session afterwards. But these are kind of at least my observations and experiences of what I think it takes to win an FIP large gold medal. So that's what I'm focused on. So to get an FIP large gold medal, it's actually really simple. You just need to get 95 out of 100 points. Now, if we look at the points, basically there are 20 points for treatment, 10 for philatelic importance, 35 for personal study and research, 30 for condition and rarity, and 5 for presentation. So the math is really simple. You can afford to lose a maximum of 1 point in each of these categories. And if you lose no points in one category, you can allow yourself to lose 2 in another one. So now I have colored these different categories in different colors. And this is because philatelic importance and condition and rarity at the large gold medal mainly requires money. The personal study and research and presentation cannot be bought with money, very easily at least. It requires a lot of time. So you need money and time. Treatment is a little bit in the middle, and the reason for that is the following. The perfect treatment, and remember we need at least 19 points, so the perfect treatment can only be achieved if you own a large proportion of the best material, because if you don't own a large proportion of the best material, you cannot tell all aspects of your chosen subject. I would like to say, however, that you can easily have the best material without good treatment. So treatment means that there is an easy to understand structure. Some call it the wet thread, or an easy story to follow. But there is no way around having the best material. All right. Well, what is the best material? And I have tried to observe what are judges actually looking for when they kind of discuss, should this have 93 points or 95 points or in that kind of area? And I have kind of noticed there are certain things they tend to look for. One is, of course, the most general one, which is they are looking for the items that are key to telling your story. And this is the case in postal history, postal stationery, and traditional. So one of the things that judges tend to look for in top exhibits is whether you, if it's traditional, do you have the earliest known use of your issues? For instance, a first day cover, if it exists. Or in postal history, do you have the earliest recorded item of a specific type of mail, for instance, and so on. That is the case for all three classes. Especially in traditional and postal stationery, pre-production material is extraordinarily important, especially the ones related to the first version of any given issue. If it exists, of course, because there are issues where it doesn't exist. But if it exists, it is essential. And the reason is you have your title page, and what comes after that will typically be the production story. So how did that stamp come to be? So this key pre-production material will be on page 2, 3, 4, and so on. And I can guarantee you that every judge are going to look at the first 4, 8, 12 pages of an exhibit, because they are going to see, is there a connection between the title page, the plan, and basically how the story is being told on the first pages. So since this material is going to be on the first pages, this is absolutely essential. Also, it's essential because usually, and there are exceptions, but usually this pre-production material is much rarer than the stamps themselves. I think somebody is unmuted. Then, of course, also the largest recorded multiples. That is particularly important in traditional. And if stationery exists in multiples, it tends to be important too. And in postal history, people try to look for big, spectacular frankings. And in postal history, it's mainly largest recorded franking, which would be more interesting to look for. But also in traditional, do you have the largest recorded franking of your issues? That's typically something that people will look at. And then I'm afraid that this may not be particularly popular, but I do think that you need to have the items with the highest catalog values and all the known rarities. And my observation is the following. When judges prepare, they mostly try very hard to find specialized literature about your collecting area during the preparation. But if you cannot find anything specialized on a given collection area, the minimum you're going to do is to look into a catalog, and hopefully a specialized catalog over that area, and you will have known this information in advance. And if there are rarities and stamps with very high catalog values, automatically, whether we like it or not, judges tend to look for it. So that's why it is important to have them. All right. Now, as I mentioned, to sum up, what does it take to get 95 points? Well, you need a combination of money and time. The good thing is that if you do not have so much money, you can compensate that by using a lot of time. If you do not have so much time, you can compensate that to a certain degree by using a lot of money. There are exhibits in the middle that does both, but there are a lot of exhibits who are either time dominated or money dominated at the 95 plus level. So you need lots of money and or lots of time. And again, I would like to stress that there are very, very spectacular, very expensive exhibits where the exhibitor has also spent a lot of time studying the area and doing research in the area. So there are exhibits that excels in both of these areas. But there are many exhibits that excel more in one than the other. And in my view, the strategy to get a large gold medal is, I would advise it to be different if your strength is rather on the financial side, or if your strength is rather on the time side. And I will try to show you and analyze why that's the case. So let's start with what I now call the big money exhibit. What is the strategic consideration if money doesn't matter, but you do not have so much time? How would you the fastest get to a large gold medal at FIP level? Well, if money is not a concern, I would advise to find a famous traditional or postal history subject where many of the key items are well known and very expensive. I will come back to why. First issues of almost any country are a blessing, because if they got their stamps well before UPU, the key items will often be well known, and there will usually have been exhibits at the large gold level before, so you can kind of look what is needed to get there. There's one time issue you cannot compensate, no matter how many funds you have, and that is the cycle of material in the market. It is simply so that the key items of any collecting area do not usually get on the market more often than every 10 to 20 years. So sometimes it takes longer, but 10 to 20 years, I would say, is the typical cycle time for the key items of a collecting area. So if a key item comes up for sale and money is not a concern, it's advisable to go all in on buying the key items because they may not appear again on the market for the next 10, 20, 30 years. You should, of course, try to avoid areas where one or two collectors already hold most of the significant material, because those people may not need any money and they don't want to sell it no matter what you say. So therefore, this area will be blocked. So be careful, if your ambition is large gold, to start an area where the key items are held very firmly by somebody who will definitely not sell it. If you have very little time, and you do not have time to do everything yourself, you can even pay somebody like me or a professional philatelist to partly or fully text, mount, and or optimize the exhibit score in treatment, knowledge and research, and presentation. There is nothing wrong with that, because we are judging the exhibit, not the exhibitor. This is very, very clearly stated in the rules. We judge the exhibit. We do not judge who has mounted it. We do not judge who has done the research. We only judge whether the presentation, the treatment, the quality, the condition of what we see in the frame, what should that get in points? Yeah. And there are many top exhibits that are not mounted by the exhibitor. Why do these big money exhibits work and get to large gold medal? Well, they do it because we are all philatelists. I personally love to see those famous treasures of philately in the flesh. There is also the effect that the unattainable attracts. Many collectors like to see the stuff they could never buy for themselves. And this is what you see in these kind of exhibits. And also, I think it is great that the individuals who have worked hard to earn the cash needed to own such material actually shows it to the rest of us and do not keep it at home in a safe. So it is very, very lovely to see these exhibits. They are also quite easy to understand and to document rarity and describe the items, because in most of these classical, well-known areas, very good literature exists. And so you can quite easily describe the items. Usually, in many cases, there has actually already been a large gold medal exhibit in that area before. And often these exhibits have been saved for the future, either as copies, scans, or in book format. You can actually look how the best items look like. You can look how they were described, and you can look what it took to get there. It's also a fact that judges tend to get a little bit blinded by the fantastic material, and then sometimes problems and small mistakes in the other judging criteria tend to pass unnoticed, and or more leeway is given. And because rarity is judged in a positive way, that means we look for how many rare items are there more than we look for how many rare items is missing. And that's also how the rules want you to do it. So the judges sue how many rare items are there here and how important are they? And in these type of exhibits, they will find many well-known rarities and important rarities. So you can actually get away with missing quite a lot of the best material in these kind of collecting areas and still get a large gold medal, because the rarity level of the items you are showing is very high from a broad perspective. All right, so now I would like to come to the other. Since I have no experience with this first kind of exhibit, I will now come in more detail. I will go in more detail with how you get 95 points with what I can call a big time and research exhibit. And this is an exhibit where you don't have so much money, but you have quite a lot of time, or you are willing to spend a lot of time, but you cannot spend a lot of money. You have to spend some money, but you cannot spend millions. All right. The mountain you need to climb is significantly steeper if this is your way to do it. And you need to be more perfectionistic in all the other judging criteria if you want to reach large gold medal with an unknown collecting area, because that's the only way you can do it, probably. The reason is that to get a large gold medal at an FIP exhibition on a budget, you need not 95 out of 100 points, you need 95 out of 98 points. And the reason is that if you don't show something that is first issues or famous and well established, you are going to start out losing 1 point in philatelic importance and 1 point in rarity. You are never going to get 20 points in rarity for something non-famous. At least it's very rare. Yeah? And importance also tend to go down. So that means now you have only 3 points left to lose. So you need 19 in treatment, you need 34 at least in knowledge and research, and the last point you can lose either in condition and rarity, but you need 9 or 10 in condition, and you need 18 or 19 in rarity, and it would be, you don't want to lose a point in presentation, I think. So basically that's the facts you are faced with. And therefore, in my view, if you want to do this kind of large gold exhibit, strategic considerations become very important. Okay, so even if you're on a budget, this statement has not changed. The perfect treatment can only be achieved if you own a large proportion of the best material. The judges do not care about your budget. They care about whether your treatment is perfect, and to have a perfect treatment, you need a lot of the best material. So I think it becomes very important then to choose what you exhibit very wisely. So here are my ideas on this. So this is what I did myself. So find the most interesting and significant area where you over a period of 10 to 20 years can afford to buy all the best items. if you want a large gold medal on a budget, you almost certainly need at least 10 to 20 years to get there. So that's your time frame. And basically, you can go into auction catalogs, you can look at previous dealer advertisements and so on, and try to find out what does the most important items in a given collecting area cost, and then make a realistic evaluation. Can I actually buy those 10 to 20 items over the next 10 to 20 years with the income I am expecting to have during this time? Also here, you should of course try to avoid areas where one or two collectors already hold most of the significant material, unless of course you can buy their material. Then it's a great way to start, of course, but that's rarely the case. Where first classical issues are a blessing for the big money exhibit, it's a plague for the budget exhibit, because there is no way that you can get the best items in a first issue of anything, any country that got their stamp significantly before the UPU at least. So avoid these because you simply cannot buy the best items. I would also recommend to avoid famous, well-known collecting areas if you are budget, like Pony Express, Waterbury fancy cancels, a French Ted badge, things like that. If you're on a budget, that's just not the right choice of area. Here comes, in my opinion, the key to having any chance of getting to 95 is to try to find an area where very much original research has not yet been done. You need to find something that's still reasonably important, but the research has not yet been done. That, I think, is going to be at least easier if you can find that. Because I think you need to study the area you want to exhibit so that you know more about it than anyone else on the planet. And if you can get there, you can find a lot of material on a budget that you can describe correctly, but nobody else can. And that, of course, will help you find good items for a reasonable price. Then I would also recommend to go through all available auction catalogs, collections, literature, etc., to start a database, because you are on a quest to get to large gold medal with an unknown exhibiting area, or at least not very well known on the international scale exhibiting area. So you need yourself to convince the judges why you should get 18 or 19 points in rarity, because they will not know the rarities of your area in advance. So you need to have serious documentation why your items are rare, and the judges have to believe it. I would also recommend to go through all available auction catalogs, collections, literature, etc., and make a secret list of what you consider to be the top 20, 50, and 100 best items of your collecting area. If you are with a very high budget, you should also make such a list, and you should make it public to every dealer and auction house in the world. Then the material, if you are willing to pay for it, it will come to you like a magnet. But if you are on a budget and you publish this list, the items will become so expensive that you can't buy them anymore. So you want to keep this list secret if you are on a budget. If you're not on a budget, you want to make it public. Then I recommend to be ready to use your limited resources when an item from this top 20, 50, or 100 list appears on the market. Because that's what's going to make the difference. Do you have these items or do you not have these items? And use your remaining resources anytime anything more common appear in truly superb condition, because remember, you need 9 or 10 points for condition. So if you are going for large gold on a budget, you cannot afford to lose more than maximum 1 point in condition, so you need the best condition available. And now I would like to be more specific and show an example of my first exhibit that got a large gold medal, and that was definitely the budget version of getting to large gold. And I will give you a little bit of history of this exhibit. It's called Danish Postal Rates, 1st of January 1875 to 30th September 1907. I started collecting for this exhibit when I was 18 years old in 1990. And it was on a monthly net income of 500 euro per month and a stamp budget of 100 to 150 euro per month. I found a very large number of rare items in poorly described at collectors' bourses, in dealers' boxes, and at auctions. And if I got duplicates of very good material, they were sold immediately to fund buying other key material. I spent what I didn't spend in money, I spent in hours. So I spent thousands of hours doing original research in public archives, and by going through auction catalogs and box lots at auctions and recording the rarity of everything I was collecting. I spent almost all my free money and time on philately, and I was very determined. 13 years later, I won FIP large gold medal in Bangkok 2003, and by that time I had never had a net income higher than 2,500 euro a month. So it is possible to compensate lack of money with time to quite an extensive degree. You cannot do that, however, without knowledge. And I would like to pay tribute to, in my opinion, one of the two most important Danish philatelists. He's not known internationally, but his name is Carsten Jensen from Aalborg, Denmark. He started in 1979 recording all stamp franc Danish covers sent to foreign destinations from 1851 till 1907. And he had 30 to 40,000 covers in his database, and he recorded the rarity of every franking combination to every country in existence. And I was lucky that I'm from a town very close to where he lives. So when I was a junior exhibitor collector, I got very close to Carsten Jensen, and he was so kind to give me this recording information, exactly how much was known of every franking to every country and every rate. He gave me this information 10 years before it was publicly available. And without this knowledge advantage, I don't think I would have gotten there. So based on this survey information, I made tables of all known rates 1875 to 1907 to foreign destinations. And basically this was my tick-off list. And there was about 180 different rates. With 8 frames, you can actually show that number of covers. So I decided I want to get one of each of these major rates. I don't know why that's doing that.
We will take care. Thank you.
Okay. I then started an own survey of domestic mail, because Carsten only recorded international mail. So I did exactly the same with the same database and the same program, and recorded all stamp franc domestic mail from 1851 to 1907. And I made top 20 plus lists for domestic and international mail items based on the survey information and auction illustrations. And since in this database we record exactly who owns the items and also at what auctions they were sold, I could go back in the auction catalogs and figure out for each and every rate what is the best quality example that exists. And that was basically put on my wish list. Not the second best, not the third best, only the best one. And then I went to the Postal Museum and I copied more than 20,000 pages of original archival rule information from that time. And I read it chronologically, all of it. And I noted down in a Word file every rate and regulation that was mentioned in there and when it was changed. with a source, exactly where it was standing, so I could go back and check it if I saw an item. And then I decided that I had the following goals for my postal history exhibit. I wanted to show all significant rate changes if items to illustrate them are recorded. And my complete list today is more than 97%. So I have more than 97% of all rates known from this 32-year periods. The common rates must also be shown because otherwise the story told would not be complete. And I was extremely strict on duplication. If something was really, really rare, there were only 2 known of this rate, and I got both of them for some reason, I immediately traded the second best. And because I knew that I would need 9 or 10 points in condition, I thought about what it takes to get there. And basically the common material must be in exceptional condition. So I only collected that in exceptional condition. And anytime I saw an item that was just 5% better than what I had, I bought the second common item to improve the quality level of all the common material continuously. The rare material was in the best available condition. And I considered all quality aspects of the items, including the perforations on the stamps, no ugly stains, no ugly folds, and so on. And this is because to get full points in condition, 10 points, it requires that you have taken exceptional care to find also the common material in superb condition, and that is often forgotten. Top condition basically looks like this. Mint stamps, perfectly centered, perfectly perforated. U stamps, nicely perforated, no faults, and a cancellation that can be read and is oriented as correctly as possible. And postal history, ideally, no stains, no folds, nice handwriting, and clear cancellations. For common material, this level of condition is achievable. For scarce to rare material, it is not achievable because it doesn't exist in this kind of condition. And I know that Indian states is definitely an exception. I mean, that is so hard to find in anything near what we in Europe would consider good condition for European material. So of course you have to be aware that there are special collecting areas where superb condition is not as pristine looking as it does for European countries. Rare material, the top condition can be something like this. This is a pre-UPU letter to Russia showing the EUR rate. And basically there are 7 known covers of these, and there are actually only one of those 7 covers that has faultless stamps, and this is the only one. So that's the best you can get. So I developed this, what I call my quality rarity matrix, so that whenever I saw something on an exhibition or at a dealer's box or at an auction, if it was the best quality that that item existed in, I considered it great for exhibiting, no matter how common it really is. Because if it's the best, then it's attractive in your exhibit. If it's very good quality, that's also good for any level of rarity. The problem becomes, what do you do if rare and super rare material is ugly? And basically, if ugly material is super rare, so the only known item looks horrible, I always ask the question, is it really needed for my exhibit? Meaning, is a judge going to miss it either because of completeness or because of rarity? If I think the judge may not miss that item, I would never put it in. If I think it's essential for telling my story, I will put it in, but I will not put too many of those items in because it's a trade-off. Every one of these items you put in, you will subconsciously lose maybe 1/10 of a point in condition with the judges, because the overall impression of the exhibit quality goes down, but you may gain 2/10 of points in rarity and treatment, and then it may be worth putting that item in. But it's really a borderline issue with very rare material in very poor condition. common material and scarce material in poor conditions, I would never put in exhibits. Not nowadays, at least. Okay, so that was all the thoughts before I really started build the exhibit. And once I start build the exhibit, the most important page, in my opinion, in your exhibit is your title page. It's the first page. And the reason for that is that that page goes to the judges in advance. So they have much more time to look at this page before they come to the exhibition. And therefore, I do not have material on that page because I wanted to use it to communicate with the judges, because I have a unknown area and not so internationally known collecting area. So I need to explain to the judges what this area is about, what's special about it, what's rare, what's the treatment, and what's the rarity statement, what are they related to. So the headlines here are the purpose of the exhibit, the overall structure of the exhibit, how the domestic section is to be understood, how the international section is. Then, since personal study and original research was so important in my exhibit, I tell something about that. And then, because the rarity statements were based on this 30-year plus survey, I need to explain to the judges that they can actually trust when I say this is one of two recorded. So this is what I use my title page on. And then, of course, I have a plan. And my exhibit plan was to show domestic mail in 3 frames and international mail in 5 frames. And since this was about rates, the treatment is controlled by rates. So I start with letters, then I go to postcards, printed matter rates, value declared letter rates, COD and money order rates, and parcel rates. And I do exactly the same for the international section. This plan is easy to understand, even if you don't know the area, because I need a plan that the judges can understand in 5 to 10 minutes. If I in postal history do not have a plan with an unknown area that cannot be understood by the judges in 5 to 10 minutes, I have lost. So I am for simple plans. Remember, there's 5 points for presentation. And I have the feeling that some exhibitors think that presentation is only there to make the exhibit looks nice. It's only aesthetics. I think it's also aesthetics, but to me, my presentation focuses on supporting and thus optimizing my scores in treatment, completeness, knowledge and research, rarity, and condition. And the reason for that is very easy. There's 5 points for presentation, and there's 95 points for all the other stuff. So if you can use the 5 points, the presentation, to improve your scores in the other 95% of the points, that's going to help you. So let me show you the first page of this postal history exhibit directly after the title page. And since I start with domestic letters, I have some must-know information on every page. And this is in the upper 2 corners. In the left corner, you have the title, the chapter, and underneath you have the page heading. And in this case, we start with domestic letters, and the first thing you show is the standard letter, the most common thing you can imagine in this case. Since this is about rates, the rates are the essential red thread of the exhibit. So I have the rates shown on this particular page in the upper right corner. And because I have them up there and you don't have to find them in little text down on the page, you can immediately see that there are domestic letter rate going from January 75 to September 02, and then there's another one from October 02 to 1919. You can immediately see that there are no other rates for standard letters. So it's complete, yeah, for this particular type of mail. Then and basically, you don't even have to look at the material on my pages to understand my treatment, because all you need to do is to look at the top 2 corners. So look at this. You have here first domestic letters. It's the chapter on domestic letters. First you have standard letters. Then you have letters to and within Greenland, because there's something special about those. Then there are registered letters from the first quarter of 75, registered letters after that, avis de réception, and express letters. You can see here all the type of standard letters you can imagine. And if you go to the right side, you can see the rates that are shown. And if you would look carefully at the dates, you can see that all dates for all types of mail are covered. You can see by not even looking at the items, you can see that the treatment is logical and complete, because I need to communicate that to the judges in 5 to 10 minutes, and they don't have time to look at the text under every cover. So I put it up in those corners to communicate as efficiently as possible. So these two upper corners are essential for me to get my treatment points. Then that's the most important level of information. The second most important level of information is the should know information. And these are basically the essential descriptions of the covers and the rarity statements, which I place directly under my covers in this case. These texts are going to give me knowledge points, and they're going to give me rarity points because of the rarity statements. All right, so now you can see now this text is gone. I have explained why I have it. Now let's look at the rest of the text. The next level is nice to know information. Basically, I can tell you the trick is that this is the information I have in case the judges decide to spot check on exactly this page, because I want to make sure no matter what page a judge happens to spot check on, they're going to find all the crucial information about those items. They are never going to read that on more than a maximum of 10 pages in the exhibit in the little time they have to judge it, but I want to make sure that no matter where they go, they'll find it. So this is in the top, it's a continuous storyline, and this text can actually be read like a book through the entire exhibit. So it's a flowing text through the entire exhibit. And I have that there to force myself. If I cannot write that text, then my red thread is not logical enough. If I can write a continuous text that you can read through the entire exhibit as a continuous text, then I know there is a red thread. So that's why I'm doing it. So that's treatment points. Then I have something that I think I actually invented kind of. I was frustrated sometimes that I had an item that showed a super interesting side story, but it was not the main story I wanted to tell. Where to put this information? It would clutter the main information under the cover. And I decided to put it at the bottom of the page. It's called Other Stories Told by These Covers. And in this case, you see at the top cover here, there's a use of a stationery cutout. And what I have down here is the postal regulations on when you could use these stationery cutouts as franking. So that's an interesting side story, but it's not the main rate story. So I put it at the bottom of the page in case people spot check, oh, that's a stationery a cutout. Is that allowed to be used on Danish covers? Oh, they can go to the bottom of the page to find that out if they decide to spot check on this page. This will give me research points. And then I have something that's a little bit more debatable. I know that a large number of the postal history jurors are also traditional jurors, and they like that people know their stamps. And even though it's not essential to postal history, if I have the space, I put a little text at the top here identifying the stamps down to printing if I know if they can be identified down to printing. So basically, that's the first text that goes. If the covers are a bit too big and I don't have space for text, that's the first one that goes. But if I have the space, I have it on every page, and I hope the judges will believe that I could also have identified the stamps on the covers on the few pages where I didn't have the space. All right, so this is also to gain me knowledge points. What this page is also an example of is that if you want a large gold medal with something where the items are not obviously rare to every international philatelist, then you actually need to convince them that a lot of your items are actually very rare. And that means that the common material needs to also be good. And you can do that by finding exceptional versions of the common stuff. And in this particular case, it's the domestic letter rate. It doesn't get more common than that. So I don't show any random cover here. At the top, I show a mixed franking between a 4 euro stamp and a 2 skilling stationery cutout. That's the only such combination recorded. And this is a mixed currency franking. It's from the first months and it's in very nice condition. The lower cover shows a side story, which is shown on the map to the left. Faroe Island was a part of the domestic Danish postal area, and basically they of course had to get to Denmark by ship. And interestingly, the ships that serviced the Faroe Islands also serviced Iceland. So in a few cases, they mixed up the mail. And in this particular case, this letter from the Faroe Islands to Denmark got put in the mail back from Iceland, and it's a domestic letter that got a from Iceland cancellation. That is, of course, a very, very interesting side story. It's something third common, but by showing these interesting side stories, the items, you increase the bottom level of your exhibit. And I spend a lot of time trying to raise the bottom, so to say. So the most common items, making them good as well. So this is basically an attention grabber. I don't have many illustrations. I don't personally like my exhibits to be full of illustrations. I use illustrations only to attract attention to some side story that is exceptional. I have a Boer War censorship cover, for instance, and I show the censorship marking next to the cover simply to attract attention. But I don't do it in many places. This is to get me rarity points, because this is actually something that seems common, but it's actually rare. And also knowledge points. So notice how now I have color-coded these texts according to these different categories. So the design of my presentation is actually used to communicate excellence in treatment. That's the green areas in the top. Knowledge and research, which are the blue texts, and rarity and condition, which are the pink part of this text. I also do something else which helps me use my presentation to communicate excellence in these other criteria. And that is that I have at each new chapter, I have what I call a subtitle page. I have a summary of what the judges are going to see in this section. And because my completeness is so extremely high, 97%, I can actually show a table summarizing all the rates known for the coming chapter, how many are recorded, and on which page the judges can find them. And I'll show you how this works in this particular case. So the UPU was founded on 1st of July, 1875, and Denmark joined from the beginning. I start my exhibit on 1st of January, 1875, because we got our current monetary system, kroner and øre, on the 1st of January. Now it becomes clear that pre-UPU letters sent to founding members in øre currency are very rare, because they can only be sent for 6 months, from 1st of January to 30th of June. And I happen to have all of them but one. And this I show here by showing that Germany, there are 3 different rates known. One rate is 11 recorded, one is 4 recorded, and one is 1 recorded. Austria, there are 5 recorders. Great Britain, there's 2 rates, 8 and 2. Holland, 1 recorded. France is the most common one, 25. Belgium, 1. Switzerland, 1 recorded. Portugal, 1 recorded. Finland, 3 recorded. So actually these have very, very high rarity levels for the rates. And by showing that, you can see the structure of the section. You can see that how rare the items are. And you can see on which page you can find the items. And by that, I demonstrate that the completeness is very, very high. So I use, again, my presentation to optimize my scores in rarity, in treatment, where completeness goes in, and in knowledge and research. And in this case, this is for the survey information. So knowing how many are recorded, this is actually personal study. Then there's a lot of discussion among judges how to emphasize your best items. And I don't like red polka dots or anything like that. I think it disturbs the overall look of the pages, so I don't use them. I also don't use any particular mounting. What I do is I'm a behavioral biologist, and I have been in the psychology department as well. So I know a little bit about visual psychology. So I try to use only visual psychology to make sure that the judges, without knowing it, goes and look at the pages I want them to look at. And I'll show you how this works on this first frame of my postal stationery exhibit. Well, which 3 items do you think are the best ones in this frame? Well, pretty easy. They are the ones that are alone on the page and the ones that break the symmetry. Because it's weird. I try to be so symmetrical all the time. And why does this guy break it on this page? So the judge will go, what's that? And that's exactly what I want the judge to do. So the first page here is the only pre-production item that exists for the first Danish postal stationery, which is the 4 skilling envelopes in 1865. That's the only known SAR proof. The one on next to it is a first day cover. There are only 2 first day usages of the first Danish postal stationery. And the one alone down there is a blue 4 øre stationery, but they by mistake used the skilling cliché to print it. And there's only one used example, and this is this one. So these are, if you look at a catalog, that's the one with the highest catalog value. So basically on the first frame, I show the only pre-production material, the first day usage, and the one with the highest catalog value. And those 3 items are single on a page. And I guarantee you 95% of the judges will have seen those 3 items. And I haven't put a special border, I haven't put a special mounting, I haven't put a polka dot, but I have used visual psychology to make sure they look at the places I want them to look. The second best set of items are these ones. And you can see how the items on the side kind of points like arrowheads towards those items. The mounting is used, and if you look now at your eye, try to start your eye anywhere on this frame. What will happen is that your eyes will in the end up on these 4 items. This is simply visual psychology. So this is basically, I have not the single page in mind when I mount it. I have at least the whole row in mind. So in this case, I will typically have kind of an arrowhead mounting on the outsides, and then nicely aligned top and bottom key items in the center if it fits with the treatment. And I call this kind of mounting, where you can see here's a frame where it's very, very consistent. You have these arrowheads on the sides all the way down. And this I call the pool table mounting strategy, because your eye, no matter where it's going to start, is going to be bounced back to the center of the frame because of those arrowheads. Try to do it, and then you can play around with Photoshop and you can move those to the other side, and you will see if you mount them opposite, your eyes go out of the frame. But if you mount them like that, your eyes stay in the frame, and the judges are therefore, because of visual psychology, going to use more time in your frame than they would otherwise. Then was this with research. In the end, I actually read through those 20,000 pages of original sources, and since I wrote down in a Word file every time something changed or everything was introduced, and with a source, now last year at Stockholmia, I released a 2,500 page handbook in Danish and English bilingual, and it includes all what the UPU and Denmark has communicated about for the first 32 years of UPU's existence. So the book includes all the necessary information to analyze 80 to 90% of all items from any country in the world from this period. So all UPU regulations, and therefore I also included all the rates and fees in franc and centimes for all type of mail, so that all you need if you collect India, or if you collect Germany, or if you collect Great Britain, all you need to understand is the conversion rate between French francs and centimes to local currency, and then the information in these books will help you analyze the vast majority of your items. There are a few cases where a single country made some exceptions to the UPU rules. Those few exceptions are not going to be covered, but 80 to 90% of items you would find, you can explain with the help of knowing what the UPU said about this. And this information has never been available before, because it's not just for letters, it's also for things like international insured letters, money orders, CODs, parcels, international parcels, forms, postage due, and so on. And basically that's also what I did in the exhibit. So there was a lot of information in the exhibit that you could not find from any country in the literature at the time. And there, we made two versions of this book. One is the 5-volume with all the information. And then we also made an exclusive version where you can actually see these 3 large gold exhibits that I have taken examples from. It's one in traditional, one in postal history, and one in postal stationery. They are fully illustrated in this book. And I have added 73 pages, tips and tricks about exhibiting, kind of doing like what I tried to do now. Try to give you, but there was this, I don't have time to read 73 pages here, so there's a lot more information in there than what I had time to include here. So basically, I would like to finish off by saying that I have used 2 strategies more that were very important to me. And one is that I got feedback early versions of my exhibit from other people. So I sent around my exhibits to good friends around the world, and I got them to comment and tell me, could they understand the treatment? Did they like that? Did they not like that? And so on. And I owe sincere thanks to many friends and fellow judges, because otherwise I would never have gotten where I got. Because if I would only have had to figure out everything myself, I would never have gotten there. But I got incredibly good advice from, for instance, Charles Birch in Canada, which became a personal friend while I was a postdoc in Canada, Dan Walker in the US, Peter McCann, Odenweller, quite a lot of those Americans helped me a lot in the beginning, and I remounted my entire presentation 5 times in the first 5 years because of feedback I got from the judges. So I really tried to listen to feedback from the judges. I didn't necessarily agree on everything they were telling me, but in the end, I would say 80 or 90% of what they were telling me was very good advice, at least in substance. Maybe it could be thought about and maybe solved in a different way that they suggested to solve it, but the core of the comments were excellent. Yeah? So I would like to thank all these individuals who have helped me over the years, and Carsten Jensen especially for his incredible research on rarity of Danish material, and say that you cannot get it much more difficult to get to a very high level if you do not listen to people who are more experienced than yourself. And I'm certainly doing that all the time. And even when I make a new exhibit today, one of the first things that happens is that it goes out to 4, 5, 6 different people around the world to get comments to the first versions, because I don't want to exhibit with the mistakes. I'll correct them before myself by help from these people. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and for listening. And I hope you have a lot of questions, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Henrik. What a great presentation you presented with full of detail. And I must say that you were on the top of the subject. With your excellent academic skills, you explained it very, very well. I have attended many presentations where usually they say how to earn extra marks. Here you explained it other way around, that how to not lose even 1 mark. 111 participants today from all over India, and 16 other countries, or maybe more, from Denmark, United Kingdom, United States of America, Argentina, Honduras, Germany, France, Sweden, Czech Republic, Mexico, Switzerland, Italy, Hong Kong, Bangladesh, Thailand, France, and Singapore. Thanks for being our guest speaker at philavirtu. Thank you very much indeed. And Sandeep, it's over to you.
Henrik, I want to personally thank you for an incredible presentation and for demystifying what is a very elusive process that in most people's mind to how to get a large FIP gold. And with that, I would like to start with the questions, if you're okay.
Yes, of course.
The first question, or statement rather, we have from Bertha King. Henrik, do you think that complex subjects, unusual subjects, and originality in subject choices are all important?
It's not completely clear to me what Birte means with that question, but I will try to answer some parts of it. And if it's not what she's really wanting to hear, then Birte, please ask the question again differently. But I will try to answer. The first thing is, you were asking, is it good to come with something complicated? I think the answer to that is no, because if it is so complicated and difficult to understand, it will become very, very difficult to communicate this complexity in 5 to 10 minutes, and therefore you are likely to be not understood by the judges. And if you have an exhibit area which is not famous and well known with the judges in the rest of the world, you need a certain degree of simplicity. So I think if you take a very complicated subject, your first job would be how to simplify that enough in your primary treatment categories so that you can communicate this to the judges in 5 to 10 minutes. So, but having said that, I do think that if you come up with a subject that nobody else has ever come up with, and you do it well, and people can understand it, then I think you are more likely to get to the large gold medal than if you try to do something that has gotten large for my 50 times in the past. Yeah? It's a two-edged sword with new and complex. Yeah? It's great if you can communicate this simple enough to make the judges understand it in 5 to 10 minutes.
Great. The next question we have is from Vinay Kumar Sharma. Vinay writes, Henrik, as you stated, getting material from Indian states in good condition is not always possible. What should be the approach so as to not lose points on condition and rarity?
I think in case of Indian states, it's actually one of the places where most international judges are aware of this issue, because it's one of the most famous areas together with, I think, Afghanistan and a few other places where everybody knows that all the great covers are not particularly pretty. So I don't think, there people would not expect. It's very important to say that the rarity category needs to be judged with 10 points for the best possible condition. And in Indian state, the best possible condition is a lot lower than the best possible condition in Denmark UPU period or Great Britain line engraved and so on. So I actually think it's a question of educating the judges to understand that the condition you show is the best available, but then it should also be the best available. It's difficult to educate judges and say this is the best available Indian state, and then the judges come, oh, I have an edition d'or book here about Indian states, and look here, that cover, that cover, that cover, that cover exists much better. So yeah, Indian states are known to be a challenge when it comes to condition, and I don't think it's a problem if you really have the best.
And do you suggest perhaps putting that in the synopsis?
Indeed, and I would even put it on the title page in this case, because for Indian state, it's such an essential thing that I would put it on the title page, because that the judges will even read just before they judge your exhibit. So I would put it, that would be so important for that collecting area that I would put it on the title page and not just on the synopsis.
Great. The next question we have is from Paul Novoa. He writes, in order to get large gold, we can lose 5 points. How do you think is it more? I'm sorry. Let me more plus 5 points. I'm going to read exactly what he's typed because I'm having trouble understanding the question. So if you don't mind, Henrik, I'm just going to read it. It says, "Good morning, Paul. Paul Nova, Julia FIP from Ecuador."
The question, please, Sandeep.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Henrik. How are you doing? Thank you for the presentation. The thing is, if you want to get the large gold medal, you have to lose 5 points as maximum, 5 points. How is split it out those 5 points? I think one in rarity, one in importance, and the other 3 points. How is the most popular place in your concept about where can lose those points?
Well, ideally nowhere, right? I mean, but it's, I think the secret is to try to do as good as you can in everything. I mean, the point is, these fabulous big money exhibits that has all the famous rarities, they sell themselves, okay? So in those cases, it's not so crucial to be at the top quality in your treatment, research, condition, all these things, yeah? But if you come with a budget exhibit, with something not famous, then I think you need to excel in these other things, yeah? So I wouldn't decide in advance. I would actually, my goal has always been to get 98 points. This has always been my goal, because that is the top possible point score, something like what I exhibit can get. And I have never gotten 98 points, but I have gotten 97 for 2 of my exhibits, which means I've only lost 1 point that I hadn't lost already. So my goal is to lose as little as possible, and I don't look at where I should lose them. I try to lose none of them, and then I let the judges decide where I should lose these 3 points.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The next question we have is from Rajesh Thapar. Are there any specific areas different from postal history or traditional exhibits that should be taken care of in thematic exhibits?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. So I think what Rajesh is trying to ask is that, are there any specific areas that are different from postal station and traditional exhibits which should be taken care of in thematic exhibits?
You mean, is getting to large gold medal in thematics different from this? Is that what he's asking, really?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I can say that I have never exhibited as a thematic exhibitor. I have, however, had the pleasure to have a wife who has made an open philately exhibit. And I have, of course, helped her with my expertise in searching for material, not in telling the story, but in searching for material. And if you ask me, I think that the same basic thoughts are quite useful, many of them at least, in thematic or open as well. I do think that in open and thematic, it's really, really essential, if you want to get to 95, to have a good idea about the topic, and something where open, if it's open, adds an aspect that you could never do in thematics, for instance. I mean, Eva's exhibit has a lot of historical original documents, coins and medals and stuff from 1700 something, which is when her story happens. That would be disallowed in thematic philately, but because she had these museum pieces, because that's really what they are, museum pieces documenting Danish history, and she can put it and combine it with high-level philatelic material, it becomes something that has been done very rarely before. And in the case of Birte's large gold open exhibit, it's also because she took a very personal story about the resistance in the Second World War in Denmark, which she's very personally connected to. She knows a lot about it. And she also has a lot of interesting material from that. And she immediately recognizes interesting material. So again, I think knowing your story better than anyone else is also in thematic and open essential. And I also think that going for top condition is essential, because I see a lot of thematic exhibits. They got their first cover, let's say, with some classical French stamp on because they could use it for something, and then they never change it. But I mean, that classical French cover, if you can use a Ceres stamp because Ceres fits into your story, there are fantastic items with those stamps on, then choose one like that and not the first one you found, so to say. So I do think, again, this with optimizing everything you show can also apply to thematic and open if you want to get to the very highest level.
Great. Thank you. The next question we have is from Vinay Kumar Sharma. Since obtaining archival material and proofs is not always a possibility when it comes to Indian fiscals and revenues, what other approach can one take to get a large goal if these things don't exist? Is it still possible?
I will never answer the question if it's possible to get to large gold with a certain exhibiting area, because that is impossible to know, because I don't know what material and how original an approach you can take. I can tell you that when I started collecting my postal history exhibit in Denmark, all the judges told me you can never get more than large vermeil for something that modern. So I simply do not believe such statements anymore. So that's hard to answer. But what I can say, if you do not have pre-production material for your first issue, then in my view, you need to use mistakes. So production mistakes. Something went wrong. They are often rare, and you can use those to describe the production process, because you can compare it. This is how it should look. And this is when something went wrong. And because of this combination, you can guess how they were perforated. You can guess how they were maybe glued. You can, how the gum was put on and so on. So, and some of the printing mistakes you can use to show, okay, there were so and so many stones. They were then put together to a whole sheet like that and so on. So then you don't use the pre-production material to do that, but you use mistakes in unused stamps, preferably, because there you can see, or unused revenues, because there you can see the details that you are talking about the best. And then you can you can use non-pre-production material to tell the pre-production story. I don't know if you get where I want to go.
No, I think you explained it really well. Thank you.